for anyone that's not familiar with you, Phil Allen, our CEO's father and chairman of the board of our company.
Yeah.
So I wanted to I've been here for about a year now, a
Yeah.
little over a year.
Yeah.
And the biggest difference that I've seen in this company and anywhere else I've worked is definitely the culture.
Yeah.
So I want to understand where did that become important for you? Like, was that always a focus? Were you always trying, because we've been the top 5 workplaces in Iowa for the past 5 years, our top workplace in Iowa. But was that always a focus, or did that just happen over time?
No, when I was a salesperson for Allen Bradley, which is Rockwell Automation now, for 7 years, and I'd call on these small companies, and I just kept calling on them, thinking, I can do this better. I can build a company that does the more right thing all the time, and so to me the culture thing was always a piece that I thought I could do, we could do better at than traditional companies, and it was part of my faith too. It was just the fact that we're not a Christian company. We're a company that does the more right thing, and we base it on Christian principles, and those principles don't change. And when you're in the process of just living life, adhering to those principles makes better outcomes than not adhering to them. So
I found that it's easier, especially when your principles don't change like that, that it's easier for others to make the right decision alongside you. Yeah. Yeah. So as you bring people on board, it's not, you don't have to have so much oversight and micromanaging of all that too.
Yeah.
So you started with the GracePort, and I tell that story all the time, but system integrator going in and safety manager told you that you're not going to leave that cabinet open while you're programming a PLC.
Yeah, so the story there is we started off as a system engineering business doing automation panels and automation projects, and there was an application on a friction welder at John Deere, and all the I/O was at the front of the panel, and the AC drive and the PLC were like buried into and to get in there and open the door was, so the production manager said, "Hey, can you just bring that programming port out so if I want to troubleshoot what's going on, I could do it?" So we came up with this kind of printed circuit board cable thing that terminated, and everyone thought it was a great idea, so I put a flyer out on it and sent it out, and I got some more ideas, and then people kept asking, "Can you put an outlet in there?" And so I put an outlet in there, and that started in '93, and it took, it was like 7 years of a science project for this thing, but eventually I started getting the calls from this guy at this factory in Chicago. His name was Jack Vaccarelli, and he kept calling up and said, "Yeah, I really like this here GracePort thing." I mean, he must have been a 60-something maintenance guy. "I really like this programming port thing, and I want one of them GracePorts, but instead of with those round little connectors, I want one of those ones that are like rectangular, kind of thing, that DB9, kind of stuff."
Oh, yeah.
And so I'd tell you, what do you want, Jack? Give me the pinout. I did it, kind of, and then he kept calling, "I want one of them GracePorts." He kept calling it GracePorts, and then a year later I realized, hey, I can trademark this name.
Yeah.
and it caught on, and it was a really easy thing to do, and just over time I just kept whatever anyone wanted. I just decided, heck, we're just going to build it and ship it, and we wrote our UL file around being able to put anything in these housings, and as long as the components met a certain rating, we could mark it UL, and voila, 20,000 permutations later, we're still making new GracePorts and shipping them in a couple days. So the model really works well, and we fine-tuned it over the time. So
when he asked you to bring that programming port to the outside, you had to think that was a good idea, obviously, and you went about it. Did you think it was going to take off and turn into this company, turn into what it did?
I don't know. When I was in high school, I I've kind of always been an industrious kind of person, you know. So when I was in fourth grade, I had a paper route, and my, you know, this is in California. You'd fill the bag up, the bag on your handlebars up with papers, and there were times when the paper was too heavy, and if I didn't get down the road and my bike fell over, I wasn't even strong enough to pick it up, but I'd go get my dad in his robe and his slippers to go, you know, help me get the bike up so I could get down the road and get rid of enough papers to do that. And then in high school, I was doing a lot of carpentry, cabinet making, hiring my buddies to help bust out kitchens and you know, bathrooms and stuff like that. And then in college, I just always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, work for myself. And in college, so my whole life was sort of this vision of a company like Grace. And, you know, when you sort of have that North Star thing, it just affects all your decisions you make daily. And so did I know this was going to grow up to what it is now? I don't think so. But if it wasn't the GracePort, I would have figured out something else for it to be, you know, because I'm pretty creative and innovative. So
with the components we have now, we get requests for some new ones occasionally. Yeah. But we've kind of standardized because Ethernet ports and USB-C, so that helps. Where do you see it going? What's like the next generation of GracePort look like?
Well, I think it's going to be more of security around panels, you know, both digital security and security around keeping the panels closed and managing that. I still think that even though, you know, wireless and Bluetooth is a big deal, you still have a device. You still got to be able to plug something into it to get a hardwired communication connection. And I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. You know, to think you can do everything Wi-Fi or digitally, you know, over the air to talk to them, you know, so.
How'd you get in 60 countries? You started selling internationally. How quick did that happen?
Not quick. Yeah. Nothing happened quick. We bootstrapped this company for 15 years, and I look back on the 15 years, and it seemed like a day, you know, because I had so much fun doing it. But nothing. You know, it was not an overnight success. It was an over-decade success or a decade and a half success. But you know, we just took care of the customers, and what was
it's 60 countries. It's the international presence.
So we, you know, Alan Bradley had this Encompass program, and we got on that thing like I think in '97.
All right.
Like one of the first companies as part of the Rockwell Automation Encompass program, and that got us credibility with distribution, but it also gave us an international reach. And so we were able to, like, you know, if we had an inquiry in India, I could call the Alan Bradley distributor and they'd handle the order for us, you know.
Yeah, I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah. But, you know, there was a time when we would, in the late 90s, we'd go into accounts. We'd, you know, my sales manager walk into an OEM account, and he'd show them the GracePort, and he'd go through all this stuff, and they'd, oh man, that's a great idea. And then the guy would say, yeah, as soon as my users specify it, then, you know, we'll do it. So my sales manager just told our manufacturer reps at the time, I don't want to see one more OEM. I want to go into end users. And he walked into end users, and he'd show them the thing. And they said, oh, that's a great idea. I got 2 data highway ports and an outlet here. I got a data highway port and a DB9 here. And we'd walk out with like 5 or 6 SKUs, you know, 1, 2, 3, maybe 10, 12 units total. We'd quote it, boom. A couple weeks later, the order would come through, and then the users put these things on, and they started liking them, and they started feeling safer around them. And next thing you know, we're specified on motor control centers. We're specified on projects. And so our global reach came from like just doing the hard work of influencing, you know, end users and, on specifications, getting on their specs. So,
All right.
so we, kind of built it up from the top down or whatever. So,
Yeah. What were some of the hurdles, things that you thought were really going to stop you in your tracks, or what? Anything that you hit where you thought this might be unachievable, or?
well, in the early 2000s, I was using another vendor's housing, and it just really wasn't quite a good fit
All right.
for what we were doing, and it didn't have the right UL ratings on it. So, at that point, I found someone in China, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I figured out how to get a visa, and I flew out and, visited a vendor in Hunan province in China, and they did the design of 5 different size housings and all the molds and everything. And then over time, I got those eventually UL listed. And I mean, I made this plastic like so thick on this thing that you can literally take a hammer and it won't break. I mean, the metal will break before the plastic cover will break. And so this thing, I think we got 1 million of these babies out in the marketplace now, and these housings just don't.
Our customers have, when I was new and I was talking to existing customers about some newer products, they've always referred to GracePort as the golden standard.
Yeah.
Because there's other imitations out there, other products, but at that point, so you said that was around 2000. Has it been a focus on quality to make sure that you're not just cutting quality to save a few pennies here and there? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been, kind of one of these things where we really wanted to do it right. But doing it right was like being able to be able to put fully assembled tested cables in, because if you had to make the connections to get them through the panel and everything. So we kind of came up with a whole lot of bracketology to hold all these different standard cables in the front so that they were presented well, and we didn't have to worry about the quality of the data connection going through them. I think the quality thing was also, from an engineer's standpoint, specifying the GracePort. They got to the point, they'd call us back before we had chat and everything. They'd call us and say, I got this part number, I need to add this connector. And we'd say, yes, here's the part number, here's your new price, boom. And so we got a whole bunch of engineers and designers that just get on our chat, I need this connector, boom, they get a part number from us in 5 minutes, list price, they order it, it takes 10 minutes to do it. And so the quality is also in the process of making it efficient, because you don't want to put a GracePort on a panel if you have 3 data ports on there, and the only GracePort you can get has 4 data ports. What's someone going to do if they walk up to the panel and plug into the 4th port? Unless it's taped over or something. So we always just what you need in the panel, nothing more, nothing less, and that played out really well over time. So
yeah, I can see how. That the customization I love, though, because I'll get a request from a customer and they'll want their logo on it. They'll give me a list of components they want in there, and I'll send that over to Troy, who's been here 23 years now.
Yeah,
it's done in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a brand new part, new part number, new everything. Bam, there we go.
Yeah.
That's insanely fast.
Yeah.
So I love turning that around for customers.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and our the reps too. You've grown a great manufacturer's rep around us, because they're just happy. They're proud of the products. You made something that's really common sense, really useful, but you've managed to not just aim at safety and get productivity in there as well.
Yeah.
And that seems consistent with every single product line that we've expanded to.
Yeah.
The indicators, the check volt now doing amazing, but it's not just safety and eliminating that risk. It's really making people a lot faster at their job. Did you have that intent when you were going? Did you realize that all the time, or?
Well, when we started GracePorts, I started fiddling around with it in 93, and it sort of started getting some form in 96, 97, 98. But the best gift horse we got on this thing was NFPA 70E in its current format. It was existing prior, but it didn't really have much in it, It showed up in 2000. And once we understood that and the whole, push to like really manage electrical energy and that whole thing and keep the panel closed, that kind of changed the world. So we got lucky with 70E showing up on our doorstep, while we were into this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
how with that, because NFPA 70E isn't like required, like OSHA doesn't require it. It's like strongly suggested and smart to follow it. But did you have to encourage some companies to like create an electrical safety program? And that's actually part of Grace. We will help with that too. Yeah. But was that a conversation that you had to go and like teach NFPA 70E to your customers to help them understand the hazards?
Well, the way the 70E thing works is in OSHA there's what they call the general duty clause.
All right.
And that's OSHA's responsibility is to make sure that workers work in a safe work environment. And so because of that, the general duty clause, it allows OSHA will enforce to the latest and greatest standard. And so if you look at the introduction of 70E, it was designed for OSHA to be because there's no way OSHA can do all the approvals to get a cutting edge like electrical safety document out, so 70E took that. OSHA recognizes 70E as the best practice. And so, but if a federal OSHA guy finds, gives you like a fine or a citation, they have to quote the document in the federal law, not 70E, but still 70E is their gold standard for like what's safe in a workplace. So
okay.
So it works kind of hand in hand.
I know like Shelley's on the IEEE, a senior member there. Do you have people in these places that are you influencing these regulations and helping make those decisions? And
yeah, with 70E, the last 10 or 15 years, we've submitted proposals every cycle. There's like a 4-year cycle.
Okay.
So you submit a proposal, it gets either voted up or voted down, or then in the public inputs, and then there's public comment phase. And we got some really good language in the public comment phase that endorses the applications of some of our other products in that world too. But the whole NFPA 70E consensus standard thing, I've been involved in that. I mean, it's a good process. I mean, it's tough, but they end up with a pretty high safety standard.
Okay.
So, if you start a safety standard here, anyone, most companies don't reach the safety standard, but if they're getting close, they're reducing amount of risk. So that's important to us. So
is that what started the expert network, the electrical safety consulting part of Grace? Is that you, or is that later on?
Well, that was one of our marketing engineers. He kind of came up with that because he wanted to, he was answering a lot of questions on 70E using our PESD products and what have you. And so he kind of came up with that idea. And so we partner with a lot of training companies, a lot of, we got some expert network stuff where we can resell a fully copyrighted electrical safety program customized to the company's needs. So
that's handy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people that want to be compliant. They want to follow all that, but it's not always the easiest thing to do. Like you said, So 70E, it's hard but once you
manage it, I mean, to manage a 70E program, you have to like get your whole power system fully understood, fully documented, which is a good thing you need to do anyhow. But once you get a 70E program in place, it's actually easier, to manage because everyone's working to the same standard, and they know what all the energies are. They know what to do. They got the prescribed process. They all have to go through training, and a worker that is trained to do safe work and knows what that means is a much more productive worker than someone who's saying, God, I hope this thing's locked out. I hope, man, I don't want this thing to start. I'm really nervous. I'm not sure, They got to be sure, they got to feel safe, and then they're going to be the most productive. So that's always been kind of my philosophy.
Yeah. On that, the sites that I've been into, and because you walk around, because we're used to seeing all this safety stuff, and like our prime customers have all of it in place, and it looks great, and it's safe and productive. But then you go into somewhere that doesn't have any sort of panel interface connector, any electrical safety devices, and they're not stupid. They know there's a hazard there, but they're just not always given the means to do it, or have the ability, or there's a time crunch, and they know they want to go home. They know if they really screw something up that there's a chance they don't. Yeah. But how have you had that conversation? Like, have you've had to seen that especially introducing the GracePort, that is there usually pushback, or?
It's interesting because when you sell our products, if you walk into a plant who has a 70E program or is putting in a 70E program, they're like, oh my gosh, you got that? This is great. This is great. But there's a lot of plants that don't have 70E programs, and they have their own electrical safety program. It may not be exactly 70E, but as long as they don't have injuries, it's what they decided to do. But once and if you walk into those plants, they like look at you and say, well, why do I need that? I mean, why do I need these things? But if they have a 70E program, they see the value of through-door interfaces and not being exposed to voltage. They get that right away. Someone who doesn't have a 70E program doesn't get that right away. So.
Yeah, we get a lot of phone calls from people that have just gone through an arc flash study.
Yeah.
So and then they do realize that, and they go, all right, there's a lot of places I think I can improve this. Yeah. So, which is great. Every product line here, it all seems common sense. When we have Bernie and Les, the comic strip that goes out, and those are great because they tell a story in each one of them. Yeah. How'd you come up with that?
Yeah. Well, so that's the most interesting. That's kind of my one aha moment that was sort of my like bath by baptism in marketing and sales. No, not necessarily sales, but just marketing and communication. Was I went to a trade show. I think it was the first Allen Bradley Automation Fair. The Encompass Partner thing.
All right.
And I had a big banner up, and I showed a picture. And the banner, it showed a picture of this thing. And I would like sit there at the trade show, like explain, okay, see now see, this goes on the outside of your panel, and then you connect this to your Ethernet port, and you can open it up, and you can plug in your computer. You can, and it took like way too long to like explain it to everyone. They like, oh, okay, good. So then I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Well, I had a suite next door to a guy who was a cartoonist. His name was
lucky.
John Holliday, and they'll show you a picture of the cartoon. It's in our conference room. And I came and I said, "Okay, can you make a cartoon of like a crappy panel, smoky, with this guy programming with the door open and all unhappy versus a closed door, and the guy's, And I did that cartoon, and I printed it up as a banner. And the next trade show I went to, I was like, they'd say, "What do you do?" I'd point to the banner. I said, "That's what we do." Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. When did you think of that, And all of a sudden, boom, it went from like this makes a lot of sense. And then I kept morphing the whole idea of cartoons. You know, I had one with a guy in a factory, dirty, and then a guy out on the beach with an automation panel with his hat. And, you know, so I had a lot of fun with it, and then we kind of morphed it into all the Bernie and Les stuff. But and then when we do like test marketing campaigns, we found out that the biggest thing people understood that they, you know, responded to was the cartoon. So it was a way of setting us apart from, you know, from all the other noise in the industry, and people would actually, you know, look at our cartoons and laugh and smile about them. So
yeah, that's clever. You don't see that a lot, but that's really clever. We're animating it now. Are you aware of that?
No.
Yeah, we have a Bernie and Les Road show that me and Chris are doing.
Oh, good.
So we do voice. I don't know, not sure if we're changing our voices in it, but
So.
it's pretty fun. But they're still telling a story, so they're still useful and very good at the picture of the visual, especially.
Yeah.
And we have one for the hotspot monitor where he's at the bar and he's seeing the place burn down on the TV. So it is fun to see those things come out. We have circular GracePorts coming out soon.
Yeah.
Has that been asked for a long time, or is that more of a recent thing? Because I know the feedback we get from our customers are, we love your products, make them easier for us to use, make them easier to install, make them smaller, make them whatever.
Yeah.
But the Circle GracePort, is that new, or has that been an idea bouncing around for a while?
I've kicked that thing around a bunch of times, and you know, it was just kind of a real estate thing. You can get less into a circle, even though it's the same surface area as a square thing. So I don't know. I never got it done, but the new engineering and marketing team seemed to get it done, and you know, it'll fit a nice niche with being able to use just a hole saw to, you know, instead of
CNC.
You know, well, I mean, most automation panels, their front panels are cut with lasers anyhow, so it's not necessarily that big of an issue. But you know, the field installation guys will really like a GracePort that can fit into a round hole. Plus it's Ethernet and USB as the lion's share of our business now, so that and an outlet is kind of a compelling deal.
Yeah, the USB is an interesting one because it's helping a lot of people avoid like unapproved items being plugged in, and extension cords is one I hear all the time. Yeah. Phones. Yeah. We have one company took the USB-C to allow people to charge their phones in that device, so that they wouldn't open a cabinet and plug in somewhere where they knew there was an outlet. Yeah. So that's interesting. Do you have any interesting applications that you're surprised GracePort got onto, or?
Oh, I got a million of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just been my whole world is just understanding the applications. There's nothing I love more than getting on the phone with the customer, really trying to understand what he was doing, and then because back before there was networking, I had, data switches and all the ways to it was a lot more. It wasn't everything that right. All the current stuff, it's like 4 wires. Well, there was parallel ports we were doing, and serial ports, and
every PLC had a different standardized connection instead of an Ethernet port.
Right.
So no matter what, it had to be custom because if you would have a GracePort the size of this table if it wasn't.
Right.
But So I do want to ask about the check vault. So that, from my understanding, has been our most successful product.
Yeah.
And that it says a lot for what you've built and the relationships and the trust that Grace has, because it takes a minute for an electrical safety device to get evaluated, specified, and purchased and installed. And in less than 10 months to get over 4,000 units sold, it's a tremendous takeoff.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything like that does that happen with any other product line, or?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I've ever. Most of my product launches were like industrial electrical world, where it just it's a slow adoption. But once it gets adopted, it just keeps going on and on and on. But the check vault, you know, the check volt, we purchased the company that made the voltage presence indicator, and that circuit was through-hole components, very, very reliable. The challenge with the check volt was taking that existing super reliable circuit and converting it to surface mount and making sure it worked the same. And I think that's been the genius of the check volt, is we took our R3W voltage presence indicator and we were able to like scale it down, add the impedance protected test points into it, and make a flashing one too that was as reliable, if not more, and use surface mount components and all fit in the same housing. So that was quite a bit of an engineering project to figure all that stuff out. So
yeah, I'm glad it ended up being the same size, because one of the most popular things to do that Ben was working with a lot of customers on is he started suggesting if you take out that R3W, that voltage indicator, it's the same size hole for the check volt, you swap it out, then you can move that to the line side of your application,
right.
And it gives you so much extra troubleshooting just at a glance.
Yeah.
So everything being the same standardized size, and that 30 mil knockout's a real common size, so that's very helpful.
Yeah.
What's the surprising one? Where's GracePort? Do you have like a favorite application that you really brings back good memories?
Well, probably the application that I talk about the most was we got an order for 1,500 voltage presence indicators, R3W. And we got them out of this company called Domtar Paper in Arkansas, I believe. And this was like 15 years ago. It was like the biggest order ever. I was like high-fiving myself. We were like, we're so good. We know what the heck we're doing. This is great. So my sales manager, Tom Howard, flew down to the company, met with the guys. And he asked the question, so, you know, why did you, what's your application? He says, well, we don't care about electrical safety. We just want to know if the disconnect, we want to see the thing flash. We want to operate the disconnect in the motor control center and see it go dead. So it was a mechanical lockout application.
Mm-hmm.
He came back, walked in my office, Phil, they didn't buy that for electrical safety. They bought it for mechanical lockout, tagout. Here I'd just gotten the biggest order of my life, and I did not know the application. So ever since then, I'm like constantly calling everyone, what's the application for this? What's the application for that? Because I think it's in the applications that's where you find the genius of things, and that's where you get a kind of a sense of where the product line needs to go and what it needs to be, and you know, and you know, it just being able to, like, you know, have electricians and people be able to install things easy and straightforward. You know, once you're out in the field, there's nothing the same. I mean, you know, there's standards, but nothing's
even two of the same companies, different facilities aren't always the same.
Yeah.
And especially after COVID, a lot of people had to start changing up like the equipment they ordered because of lead times and all that. So that customer that ordered all those R3Ws, did he help you come up with another product?
I kept fielding a lot of questions on the product, and a lot of the questions might have been stuff that other devices do better, and so, you know, all those ideas kind of, like, you know, kept growing and growing, and then we finally, you know, when we were able to buy that product line, you know, from the manufacturer, then that gave us the ability to, like, modify it and do something bigger and better with it. So
all right, because I just recently talked to that guy, and he still remembers you.
Ooh.
Still remembers Jeff. I forget his name offhand. I apologize for that. But he's buying a lot more check bolts now. He's at a new place. The first thing he said is, I installed thousands of your voltage indicators. And he's like, I know Phil, I know Jeff, but your check volt, you hit a home run with that, and that's going in. So, and he's real proud of that too.
Yeah.
So, It's nice to see the customers that you've grown with, and they're still and they trust our products because they trust us.
Yeah.
And so to make that something that fits in such a small size too, and usable.
And the gorgeous thing about the voltage presence indicator is they just don't fail. Yeah, we got probably 1.2 million of those babies out. Gosh, do we ever get any back that are failed? Heck no. It's just like, it's just amazing to me, like how good that product is, and how just this whole like team of electrical workers, qualified electrical workers, like they trust the fact that this thing is so reliable, and they kind of rely on it, but they still do their prescribed absence of voltage testing, but it gives them a sense of security, I think, just knowing that voltage presence indicator is on there, the R3W.
Yeah, you say that. I've never, to my knowledge, that I can recall, have had a complaint. When I call up someone to talk about new products or anything, they're using R3W as a voltage indicator. No one's ever came back and said, no, those weren't great for us.
Yeah, just because they just keep working and working and working,
Yeah, they generally we open up the electrical room, and at a glance I know that the problem's down, I can figure it out, and it saves me 10 minutes just by being able to see that. Yeah. So what do you do nowadays? So Drew's president and CEO of the company. Yeah. You're chairman of the board. Yeah. What is your day to day? What do you do to keep yourself busy?
Well, actually, I'm back to the basics. I'm back to getting involved in development projects and putting, thought and creativity and wrapping collaboration around it. And probably going to file more intellectual property this year than I have in the previous decade. And then working on, because I never wanted to have a business that just does what everyone else does.
Yeah, like a Me Too kind of thing.
I wanted to be out in front. I wanted to be the leader. I wanted to be the one out in front, that was like bringing people along for, on products and applications. And I remember, I'll never forget, I got a call from a editor one time. He was talking and he says, well, I want to do this thing on your PESDs. He says, what are PESDs? I said, well, they, pre-verify electrical isolation and reduce risk for qualified electrical workers. And he goes, is that a new product category? I said, well, I guess it is, so I guess we created 2 new product categories, GracePorts and PESDs, and I want to keep creating new product categories of stuff that people have never thought of, and bring new technology into the industrial space, and how it spills over into other markets is great for me. But that's what I want to do. So that's what I work on now. Is I'm working on a lot of collaboration on bringing new technologies to the market.
I'm very happy I found this company. Yeah. It was actually through the GracePort covers, the GracePort Plus.
Yeah.
Was that quick addition there? Was that how recent is that product line, that HMI cover?
I think that's 5 years, maybe.
That's actually how I found this company. I was the application engineer for an automation company, and people kept breaking HMIs.
Yeah.
It's the most vulnerable part of a machine. And I would help them try to find a solution. Yeah. And that GracePort Plus was one of the only ones I could find, really.
Yeah.
But which is insane. It's a common sense product, and I think everyone would do it.
It's a very well designed product. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing all this information with us and what you're doing these days.
Yeah.
And it's hopefully looking forward to seeing some new inventions that you bring around.
We love having you here, and Nick's sister works here too, and she's our administrative assistant, and she's the one that ties a lot of the loose ends together for all of us guys that are out running around. So we appreciate Emma, Nick's sister. So
I'm sure she'll appreciate that shout out too. Yeah. She loves working here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks.